Right, glad to have you back. I still have Mr. Joseph Owolabi, who joins live from Australia. He's the former global president of ACCA and founder of Rubicola Consulting. So I was talking about Africa and the challenge that we face, funding and all of that. How prepared do you think we are to key into this green economy and take advantage of all of these opportunities, talking about the sustainable environment?
Awesome, Tolu. Probably for the benefit of listeners, it's just good to provide some understanding around what this means. Obviously, there's a lot of noise around climate change, and we're seeing all of that catastrophe and all of this great change around us. In Lagos, the temperature has been very hot over the last few years. In Australia, we've seen the bushfires in the summer of 2019, 2020. In Los Angeles, currently, we've seen all of that devastation. And even the very ultra-rich are struggling at this point. We've seen flooding in Pakistan and all of that. So climate change is real. A lot of people agree with that now. There's overwhelming scientific evidence to suggest that. And that's why you have every now and then the COP events, which one just finished a few months ago. This is the first of such events globally. This particular event in Abu Dhabi focused on emerging areas. Obviously, there's a lot of talk around energy mix. And what does that mean? For us to generate energy in places like Lagos and across the country, Nigeria, we have to rely on diesel, on petrol. You know, of course, there's the grid and hydropower and all of that. But we see that most of this is what we call fossil fuel because it damages the environment. And so there's a lot of push globally that we need to move to more renewable energy sources. And there's a lot of work going on in Nigeria currently around renewables. And we see a lot of, modular grids coming up in Lagos State and many other states of the Federation. And so that's where we're coming from. At this particular conference, it's not just about, the solar farms and all of that. It's about green hydrogen, which is another emerging area where through electrolysis, you can pass electricity through water to split it into the fundamental elements, hydrogen and oxygen. So there's a lot of talk around green hydrogen. But if we bring it home, you've seen PBAT, the President Bola Tinubu, Paul Kagame, and all of these African leaders. It was a good opportunity for them to showcase what's happening in Africa and to beam the light on what the opportunities are. For Bola Tinubu, His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, he focused on 3 pillars, which were energy transition, climate resilience, and of course, sustainable development. We know that Nigeria needs to transit from what we have as our current energy mix, predominantly diesel. Most of our banks in Nigeria run on 100% diesel most of the time, right? Most of the base stations for telecoms, MTN, Airtel, Zayed, all of that, Niger Mobile, runs on diesel. That's not sustainable. And that's why solar needs to continue to be scalable and affordable in Nigeria. We also need to diversify our energy mix. So that's predominantly important. We've seen how Lagos State, many of the other states are also looking at compressed natural gas. You see many of the governments in the eastern Nigeria are, encouraging people to bring their cars and vehicles, public transport, to see how they can convert that from petrol to gas, which we have in abundance. So that's some of what's going on. There's also the talk around climate resilience. Of course, we've seen challenges in Nigeria and Lagos State and many of the states. Bayelsa a few years ago, where there was a lot of flooding, people losing, their livelihood and property, and we've seen Lake Chad shrunk to more than 1/10 of what it was 40 years ago. So these are challenges for Nigeria. Bola Tinubu shine the light on these areas. There's also the talk around sustainable development. For Nigeria to continue to grow, then we need to have investment in technology, artificial intelligence to drive smarter agriculture. How do we get all of the 60% of the produce that is made on the farms to get to the city centers? How do we develop digital softwares that connect consumers with farmers? So these are some of the issues, and I'm very proud to see our own president, but not just Nigerian president alone, like I mentioned, the Ugandan president, Paul Kagame, also from Rwanda, and also the Kenyan president were on ground to showcase Africa and point the light on some of these emerging issues.
Brilliant stuff there. So the role of advanced technology like artificial intelligence, human expertise, and all of that is very important here. How well are we also keen in with regards to this?
Oh, definitely. We're doing an amazing work there. In fact, 2 Nigerian companies won an award at this event. The first one is New Farm. So New Farm is a Nigerian company that won the Gold Award for the food category. And what they've done is that they've come up with this idea of solar food dryers to preserve food and also reduce carbon emission. Another Nigerian company, Owolabi, was a runner-up at the energy category. So we see a lot of innovation happening in Nigeria in this space. In fact, in Rwanda, Paul Kagame also mentioned that Zipline, their own indigenous company, is now valued at over $4 billion. A company that started in Rwanda, going all the way to become what some would call a unicorn. So there are emerging opportunities in Africa. When it comes to artificial intelligence, definitely we need investment in technology. We need to empower our farmers, right? Predominantly, we need to also look for ways to understand the grid, smarter grids. All of that would require big data, and opportunities still exist in Africa to leverage technology in terms of AI and big data to ensure that we have smarter irrigation systems, smarter agriculture, smarter energy use, and also waste and storage. Bola Tinubu also mentioned, His Excellency mentioned, that we are deploying innovation in the areas of circular economy. You've seen the Lagos State government and many other states in Nigeria come up with initiatives around circular economy. How do we ensure that we reduce waste? There's a lot of waste in Nigeria, and that's $1 billion economy. And you've seen governments now and private sector working together to ensure that we maximize these opportunities.
So you mean we have no choice, that's the way to go. The potential $10 trillion economic transformation target, that seems to be like a lot of money. What do you make of this, and what positives do we expect if this truly is achieved? I'm sure there'll be a lot of money to put into the technological space, AI and all of that you mentioned earlier.
See, Tolu, there's always optimism when it comes to money. You know, the EU put over $100 billion on the table recently for Africa alone. So there's a lot of money here and there, but critics still argue that even though you've got all of these funds and grants, it doesn't get to the developer. So there are guys in Nigeria trying to develop solar farms. They're still looking for funding. Some of the clients we work with in Nigeria are still looking for funding. And His Excellency, President Bola Tinubu, also mentioned that Nigeria is the first country in Africa, in fact, the first in the world, that issued the first certified sovereign green bond back in 2016. Now the federal government is issuing the third tranche in that issuance. So Nigerian government has always been positive, has always tried to attract investors to look at some of these opportunities in terms of sustainable development. But you know that there are always challenges. And the president did mention in his speech that there are challenges. Nigeria is still a challenging environment to do business. Many of the presidents from across Africa mentioned it. In fact, Museveni, president from Uganda, also mentioned that there are challenges in terms of infrastructure still in Uganda. Even though there's a lot of opportunities in agriculture, there's still challenges with infrastructure and all of that. But the return on investment, I think the president of Uganda tried to excite the audience to say, the internal rate of return in Uganda currently stands at 14%, and that could get better when you have infrastructure development. So it was a good outing for African presidents. It was a good outing for emerging markets. I mentioned the president of Malaysia was there, and also we had a president from Seychelles who also was there. So I love the fact that emerging market had a voice alongside their international and developed countries counterparts.
As citizens, we also have a role to play here. Before I let you go, reducing greenhouse gas emissions through better transport, food and energy, and all of that energy use. Also, far-reaching transport, the transition in land, energy, and all of that. So, do you think that as citizens, also across the African continent, are we keen in? Are we ready? Do you see that we are also ready to go green, to go clean? We're talking about green hydrogen also here, using it for transport. I saw that myself in Abu Dhabi.
Correct. See, the opportunities are immense, as we pointed out. There's also the behavioral change. There's some cultural change that needs to happen, and that was also spotlighted at the events. Yeah. So we need to change our attitude towards those things. Also, how do we conserve resources? See, it's about conserving resources. It's about low carbon economies. And so when we think about Nigeria, when we think about the way we use energy, conserve water, all of that, that needs to change. For us in Nigeria, it's about waste, right? We need to come up with smarter ways and there's a lot of innovation already happening in the market. Yeah, Lagos State launched the EcoNexus some few months ago in October. I know many states around the Federation are doing stuff there around the circular economy. I know young people are gathering, mobilizing together to reduce waste, to clean up the beaches. I know a lot of projects that used to happen at Elegushi and all of those beaches. So there's a lot of activism. People understand that it takes not just governments, not just private sector, but you need that civil society to come to the table to want to have change and have an impact. So definitely we've got only one planet and we need to preserve this planet. And for us in Africa, and not just Africa, all of the islands, the Caribbeans, Solomon Islands here in Asia Pacific, we bear the brunt of climate change. When we have rising sea levels, which we've seen this year, this is the first year where we've now eclipsed the 1.5 Celsius threshold. And the last 10 years has been the hottest in the world. There are all of this evidence out there. When all of this impacts happen, as we are seeing in Los Angeles, it's going to affect us in Lagos, in Calabar, in all of those coastal cities, in Accra, all of those places, Cape Town. So we need to take this serious. And I love to see that the government is doing its part, private sector is doing its part, and citizens in Nigeria are doing their part to climate action.
Interesting conversation with you as always. Mr. Joseph Owolabi is the former global president, ACCA, founder, Ruby Cola Consulting. Hope to see you in Lagos soon. I will have you in the studio for a live chat.
Thanks, my friend. Look forward to that.
All right, then. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.